There is a curious current that flows through the river of human awareness, and most will journey through their entire lives without ever truly feeling its pull. It is so essential, so deeply woven into our being, that it is as invisible as the very air we breathe or the water to the fish. And this phenomenon is a simple one. Almost every gesture you make, every path you choose, every word that leaves your lips is colored by a silent question that echoes constantly in the background of your mind. And that question whispers, "What reflection will I see in their eyes?" Now, you may not hear this question in words. You might believe you are moving freely, charting your own course, living a life of your own design. But I invite you to simply watch. Observe yourself in the dance of conversation. Notice how you select your words, how you tune the melody of your voice, how you present the patterns of your thought. Feel the subtle energy you spend trying to paint a particular portrait of yourself, trying to arrange the way you appear in the mirror of another's perception. This dance begins early. As children, you see, we learn that our connection to the world depends on pleasing those around us. A baby cries, and warmth arrives. This is the first lesson in the great play of cause and effect, in the subtle art of inviting another's attention and gentle regard. As we grow, this pattern deepens, becoming ever more intricate. We learn when to let a smile bloom, which words will be met with warmth, and which parts of our true nature to keep in the quiet shadows. And so, gradually, almost without a sound, we fashion a second self, a self that performs. It is a self that lives and breathes only in the gaze of others. The great cosmic joke is that we forget what we are doing. We merge completely with this role we are playing, and we mistake the mask for our actual face. We become so masterful in the performance that we can no longer tell where the play ends and our own true being begins, if, in fact, we can recall that there is a being behind the curtain at all. So what I would like to ponder with you now is what happens when this tireless performance ceases. What unfolds when you release the need to seek your reflection in the eyes of the world? And let us be wonderfully clear about this, for it is a delicate point and easily misread. I am not speaking of becoming a jagged rock in the stream, coarse and inconsiderate. I am not suggesting you should intentionally create discord or become deaf to the feelings of others. Now, this is not a call for selfishness or for a cold heart. What we are exploring here is a current that runs much deeper, something far more subtle. It is about that quiet turning point when you cease to arrange your life as a performance for an unseen audience. And this, you see, is a profound awakening of the spirit. For when you are forever chasing echoes of approval, your own song remains unsung. You become a mere reflection in a pond, mirroring what you think the world wishes to see. And the great cosmic joke in all of this is that these others are also looking for their reflection in you. So we have a dance of reflections, each one trying to please the other, who in turn is trying to please another. A dance that leads down an infinite corridor of mirrors where the original face is nowhere to be found. Let us see how this play unfolds in our daily lives. Imagine you are in a room with others, and a question is posed to you, perhaps about the great dramas of life, of meaning, of beauty. And if you watch very closely, in the silence before you speak, you will feel a flicker, a swift calculation of the currents in the room. You are searching for the words that will ripple outwards in the most pleasing way, to gain a nod, a smile, a moment of belonging. The real question, what do I feel, is lost in the noise. Instead, you ask, what mask should I wear to create the most pleasing shadow? Or consider the path of your life's work. How much of your daily dance is for your own delight? And how much is a performance for the gallery, of colleagues, of some grand idea of society? How many souls are flowing down riverbeds they did not choose, living in patterns that do not resonate with their inner music, all because they are trying to echo the expectations of another, a parent perhaps, or a ghost of success dreamed up by the collective. And what of the heart's connections? How often do we cling to the shores of a familiar partnership, not because its waters are life-giving, but for fear of the tides of disapproval? How much inner stillness is disturbed, how much of the true self is veiled, simply to avoid the fleeting judgment in another's eyes? This thirst for approval, you see, is a cage. And like all the most effective cages, its bars are invisible to the one who is held by them. You cannot see the bars, for you have mistaken them for the window frame your entire life. They have become the very architecture of your world, the silent assumption of what is real. And here, a curious thing happens. The very instant you glimpse the walls of this self-made prison, the moment you see the play for what it is, a subtle current begins to turn within you. And when you cease looking for your reflection in the eyes of others, not as an act of defiance, not to make a point, but simply because you see the endless exhaustion of the dance, the entire landscape of your world transforms. And what do we mean when we say everything changes? First, you begin to uncover the being that you are, not the idea of who you ought to be, nor the echo of another's expectation, but the quiet presence that resides beneath it all, beneath the many masks worn in the great social play. And this meeting is often a great surprise, for the self that simply is a world away from the self that constantly tries to be. This true self follows different currents. It is moved by a different music. Its longings are not the ones you have so carefully curated for the stage. It may find deep joy in things you once dismissed as simple. It might feel a pull towards quiet streams you once ignored, for fear they were not grand enough rivers. Its perspective may not fit within the neat boxes that gather applause. You see, when you release the need for an audience, you grant yourself the quiet space to explore this inner landscape. You can at last begin to ask, what melody truly delights me? What mystery captures my wonder? What is my own unborrowed thought on this? Not, what should I find pleasing? Or what thought would paint me as clever? But what, in this silent moment, is true for me? And in this, there is a profound release. For you have been carrying the weight of 1,000 shoulds, 1,000 borrowed ideas about the person you are supposed to be. And now, you can simply set them down. The performance can end. You can cease polishing the mirror of your image. You can allow yourself simply to be. Now, as this unfolds, a curious dance begins in your connections with the world. Those who were enchanted by the mask you wore, the ones who applauded the role, their approval tied to the character you so diligently played for them, these figures often drift away like reflections on a disturbed pond. And this can feel like a loss, a fading of connections, even with those held close. You may be met with the ripples of disappointment, of confusion, perhaps even a storm of anger. You are not the same, they will say, as if it were an accusation. And in a way they are right. You have changed, or rather, you have ceased to pretend. You have stopped bending your own nature to fit within the shape of their expectations. And so, some will experience this change as a betrayal, for you have disturbed the silent agreement of the social dream. The unspoken pact was this: I will reflect a pleasing image back to you, so long as you continue to be the person my expectations have painted. And yet, herein lies the wonderful secret. As some currents in your life recede, others flow in with a surprising depth. For when you cease to perform, when you release the need for applause, you simply become. And this authenticity resonates, like a clear bell in the silence. Those who are also listening for that sound, who have grown weary of the masquerade and the endless social games, find themselves drawn into your orbit. You begin to gather those who see you for the being you truly are, not for the carefully constructed mask you wear. And these connections are of a different nature entirely. They are not built on the shifting sands of approval, but on the bedrock of genuine recognition, on the profound experience of truly seeing and of being seen. This is nourishing, not exhausting, because you are no longer laboring to hold a facade against the wind. You can finally relax. You can allow yourself to be. Furthermore, when the search for approval ceases, the strings that once moved you fall away. Consider for a moment the grand theater of persuasion, of politics, of social currents. All of it turns on this simple lever of approval and disapproval. Acquire this, and find admiration.
Believe this, and gain respect. Behave in this manner, and you will belong. The whole intricate clockwork of social control is wound by this desperate seeking. But when that seeking dissolves, the great machine loses its power over the landscape of your mind. You cannot be pulled by the promise of a crown, nor pushed by the shadow of disgrace. You are free to make choices that arise from what is true for you, from what truly nourishes your own being, and the great flowing dance of life around you, rather than what might earn you golden stars from some distant authority or passing crowd. This does not mean you become cold to others. In fact, in a beautiful paradox, when you release the need for their applause, you often discover a more genuine kindness, because the consideration that comes from seeking approval is a subtle form of bargaining, a kind of gentle manipulation. It is a giving that expects a return, even if only a pleasant reflection in another's eyes. But the consideration that flows from simply recognizing another as a fellow traveler, not as a source of validation or rejection, that is the blossoming of authentic kindness. Now, let us turn our attention to the fear that emerges when we contemplate letting this old game go. For at the root of it all, there is a great shadow, a tremendous, trembling fear. The mind, you see, is a wonderful storyteller, weaving tales of catastrophe. What if, it whispers, I cease this dance of pleasing others? I will be left adrift, a solitary wave. I will be turned away, cast out into the void, and everything will dissolve. Now this feeling is not without its reason. It is an echo from a time long past, from the very riverbed of our becoming, a time when to be separate from the tribe was to face the final silence. To stand alone was to be laid bare before the prowling shadows, before the gnawing emptiness and the indifferent sky. So you see, this dread of another's frown is an ancient current running deep in our veins. It sings the song of survival itself. But here is the great secret you must awaken to. That ancient ghost, its power is but a memory, a shadow in the modern light. You will not perish if another's gaze turns cold. The world will not end. You will not be cast out into a literal wilderness to be chased by phantoms of the past. The most that can truly happen is that some will not enjoy your particular music. And when you truly gaze upon this possibility, when you hold it up to the light and see its reflection without flinching, you discover it is not a tidal wave, but a ripple. Indeed, it is as natural and inevitable as the setting sun. For no matter the mask you wear, no matter the dance you perform, some will always prefer a different play. And in this acceptance, there is a profound release, a marvelous freedom. Some will simply not resonate with you, and that is part of the beautiful order of things. You do not require the applause of the entire cosmos. You have no need for every mind to hold you in high esteem. You only need to be a true expression of yourself, and in doing so, find the others whose song harmonizes with your own. Allow me, if you will, to draw back the curtain on my own past. For a great many seasons, especially in the springtime of my own life, I was deeply entangled in the web of others' perceptions. As one who waded in the streams of philosophy and spirit, as one who, in time, took on the role of a pointer of the way for others,
I was forever polishing the mirror of my reputation. I yearned to be held in regard, to be seen as substantial, to be admired for the patterns of thought I could weave. And this constant concern, it became the very mold for all my actions. It sculpted the words I wrote, the sounds I uttered from the lectern, even the very fabric I wore and the cadence of my voice. I was playing the part of the wise man, the knowing philosopher, and oh, it was a heavy costume to wear, though I did not fully feel its weight. I did not recognize its true burden until the tide began to turn. And this turning was a quiet, gradual thing, brought on by the silence of Zen, by the stillness of watching the breath, and by the simple passage of time and a growing weariness with the game itself. I began to let go of the need for applause. I began to speak from the quiet center of my own being, rather than arranging words for mere effect. I began to rest in the quiet wisdom of not knowing, rather than clinging to the illusion of knowledge. A gentle laughter arose, a freedom to show the cracks and the uncertainties. And what, you might ask, was the result? For some, the reflection in the mirror was not what they expected. Some decided the statue of wisdom they had built in their minds had crumbled, that it was no longer worthy of its pedestal. But others, the ones who truly mattered, they welcomed this authenticity like a cool, cleansing rain. They found it a relief. They felt they could finally meet a fellow human rather than a polished image or a hollow authority. And far more importantly, a sense of liberation bloomed within. I could breathe. I could wander through ideas without the heavy burden of their respectability. I could embrace confusion, welcome doubt, and dwell in not knowing. I could simply flow with the current of my being, with all its beautiful contradictions. And this inner expanse was worth more than all the oceans of approval I had ever tried to cross. Now, let us turn our attention to what happens in that singular moment when the search for approval ceases. And I do mean a moment, a flash of insight, which is also, of course, a timeless process. There is often a quiet click, a shift in the light of consciousness, where the whole game is suddenly revealed. You see the sheer life force you have poured into polishing the reflections of yourself in other people's eyes. You see its magnificent futility, its deep exhaustion, and how it separates you from the dance of life itself. In that moment of seeing, something simply falls away. The ghost of a burden dissolves, and in its place, a tremendous lightness, a deep sigh of the soul. It is as if you have been carrying a great stone your entire life, only to realize you can set it down upon the grass. No one in the cosmos was ever demanding that you carry it. You carried it from the memory of a belief. This, of course, does not mean the old currents vanish instantly. The habit of looking outside for your reflection is a deeply carved riverbed in the mind. You will still feel its subtle pull, that momentary calculation before the words leave your lips. You will still feel that old echo of anxiety when a wave of disapproval washes toward you. But now, you see it as it happens. You are the space in which it is happening. And this awareness in itself is the light that begins to dissolve the shadow. You start to notice, there it is again. I was about to shape my words for fear of the reflection they would cause. And in that quiet noticing, a space opens up. A choice appears. You can follow the old, familiar current, or you can pause, take a breath, and speak from the stillness within. Each time you choose the music of your own being over the echo of approval, the old pattern softens and fades. And as this woven pattern begins to unravel, you see the very fabric of your life begin to change. The dance of your relationships finds a new rhythm. The current of your work changes its course. You may feel a gentle pull towards new shores of purpose, or find a deeper, quieter way to navigate your present endeavors. The texture of your daily life is transformed, for you are no longer draining your vital energy on the performance of self. This energy is now free to simply experience, to be here, now, to meet the flow of life, with an open and genuine heart. And most profoundly, the very mirror in which you see yourself begins to clear. For a self built on the shifting sands of opinion is no self at all, but a fleeting reflection. It is at the mercy of every passing wave of judgment which is ever-changing and full of contradiction. One person's light of approval is another's shadow of disapproval, and you are caught in the middle, losing the quiet center of your own being. But when you cease this struggle for applause, you find something far more real. Not a rigid, unchanging self, but a sense of your own flowing presence, a beingness that needs no external echo to know that it is. This is the great secret that the Eastern sages have been whispering through the ages. The Taoists speak of Wu Wei, of effortless action, of moving with the great current of life rather than from the friction of your conditioning. The Buddhists speak of letting go of the ego, which is, after all, this collection of frantic patterns, this gallery of masks we show to the world. The Hindus point to the discovery of the Atman, the true self, the clear sky that is always present behind the passing clouds of our social identity. When you release the need for approval, you are not becoming a different person. You are simply ceasing to be all the false people you have been pretending to be. You are allowing that which you fundamentally are to arise, to breathe, to express itself as naturally as a river flows to the sea. Now, a very reasonable question arises in the mind. But what of harmony in our world? Must we not consider our fellow beings? Will we not all become islands of self-interest if we stop caring what others think? This question, you see, looks at the matter through the old lens. The invitation is not to become a stone, cold, and indifferent to the well-being of others. It is not a call for a reckless disregard of the echoes our actions create. What I am pointing to is a deeper consideration, one that is born not from a need for validation. In fact, this very search for approval can become a barrier to genuine empathy. For one is too busy polishing the mirror of their own image to truly see the person standing before them. True consideration flows not from a rule, but from a deep resonance with another, a recognition that the other is a mirror to the self, a consciousness gazing back. From this spring, action flows that seeks not to ripple the water with needless harm. This has little to do with the echo of applause, and everything to do with the silent music of awareness. And yet, what we often call social harmony is a carefully choreographed dream. A stage where each soul performs for the other, a silent agreement to not speak the truth, to keep the masks firmly in place, polishing the surface of an acceptable self. This is not the harmony of an orchestra, but the quiet hum of mutual illusion. Real harmony, a genuine belonging, can only arise from the soil of authenticity, from beings brave enough to be seen, even in the discomfort of their own truth. So you see, to cease seeking approval is not to shatter the vessel of community, but to clear the waters within it. You are, in fact, inviting its very possibility. You invite others to step out of the shadow play and into the sunlight of a real connection. So let us consider this. The very instant you release the need for an echo, you begin to truly live, not the life scripted for you, nor the life reflected in the eyes of another, but the life that has been breathing quietly beneath it all, waiting for your return. And when you step into this current, beneath the masks and the motions, you find a marvelous secret. You discover that you simply are. Not a finished statue, of course. The waves will still have ripples, the dance will have missteps, there will be fog and confusion, and yet you are whole. You need no permission to exist. Your being is its own validation. It always was. You were simply too busy trying to purchase a treasure that was already yours. This, then, is the great turning. From the seeker to the seeing, from the performer to the presence. It is the release of that immense effort of becoming, of trying to fit a mold, and the deep, quiet peace of realizing you are the thing itself. This is liberation. This is the feeling of at last and for the first time arriving home. And for that, we can only be grateful.